Hi folks, Dr. Pulsifer here, and I'm going to ask the question of whether there's a new Cold War, and the answer is it's already started. German Chancellor Scholz warned the West against a new Cold War, although I'm not sure how he thought we were going to avoid it. Of course, we thought the Cold War was over when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991, but it only takes one side to cause a Cold War. And it's already begun with the cynical Russian invasion of Ukraine, a revival of old-style imperialism, and the West's reaction. And of course, the Russian delusion that they're as strong as the Soviet Union was. Now, a little background. After World War II, the USA recruited other countries to its side versus the Soviet Union, who publicly promised to bury the West. And the US offered an open US market and to protect trade worldwide, in other words, globalization. This is Peter Zeihan's thesis. You can read one of his books. The latest is The End of the World is Just the Beginning, or you can find many videos on YouTube where he speaks. In his view, this globalized system was ending even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The invasion has just exacerbated it immensely. Now, the old Cold War was communism versus democracy, more or less. Now it's autocracy versus democracy. Russia and China are not communist today, whether you use the original meaning of the word or the Comintern, which is to say communist international meaning. Russia and China were never communist by the original meaning. Now, in Russia and China, what we have is autocracy. There's no pretense of equality, as there was with Russian and Chinese communism. These governments are oligarchies, ruled by a small group. And autocracy, ruled by the wealthy more or less. And somehow autocracy seems to be rife with corruption and incompetence. Lying seems to be endemic. And typically it's a cult of one person. Putin in Russia, Xi in China. There's the cult of the leader's personality. Now, this Cold War may be far more one-sided than the old one. In the old one, Eastern Europe was with the Soviet Union, occupied by the Soviet Union, and it's now on the democratic side, part of NATO and the European Union. If China begins to realize its own self-interest instead of saber-rattling about Taiwan, a place they haven't owned for more than a century, practically speaking, it might escape being on the other side this time. China depends heavily on trade and on oil and food imports they cannot protect in wartime. China should be good buddies with the US, the European Union, Japan, etc., because if there's a war, they will get smoked. A conventional war. Even a nuclear war, I don't know how big their nuclear arsenal is, but not big enough to take out all those places, whereas China would be leveled. So perhaps the legacy of communism perverts their perception. But at best we can hope that the other side in this Cold War will be only Russia, Belarus, Iran, and North Korea. Unfortunately, Russia still has enough nuclear weapons to destroy the world, and they know it, and they don't seem to be bothered by the notion of destroying the world. The new Cold War is here, and I cannot foresee any peace that will remove the suspicion, the hatred, and the delusions. Thanks for listening.